some sad news. Auckland Zoo's last remaining Sumatran tiger has been put down after a long illness. 11-year-old Berani was part of an international breeding program for the endangered species and was born with two siblings who were then sent across the Tasman to Sydney. Their mother died last year, and since then Berani has been on his own. Team leader of Carnivores at Auckland Zoo, Lauren Booth, was with Berani from the day he was born. In a sense, it's a true love story. At times, through tears, she told me his illness had got worse lately and they had run out of options.
Unfortunately, it was a type of condition that is very, very hard to diagnose and then even more difficult to treat. And we had unfortunately reached the point where there was nothing else possible that we could try for him. And so due to decrease in his welfare as part of this disease, we had to make the decision to euthanize him, which was really devastating for us, as you can imagine.
Yeah. And I guess there's an idea out there. I mean, I know that tigers can live much longer than Berani lived for, and maybe that plays into people's minds in terms of that idea that these animals in zoos don't really realise their full potential. What do you say to that in terms of Berani's life?
Yeah, so most animals in captivity do live much longer than they would in the wild, and it is unfortunate that Berani, due to his the gastrointestinal disease that he did have, that he did die younger than he would have. But I guess what I would say is that it's very similar to people. I mean, we also should live a lot longer than sometimes some of us should live a lot longer, or we think we should live a lot longer than we do. But unfortunately, we face the same types of illnesses as well to a great degree, and they just manifest themselves differently. So it's just like people. Some of us go before our time as well.
Now, Berani had a couple of siblings and they were sent away, and then his mother died not so long ago as well. Are tigers social? I mean, you said they're a bit like humans. Humans are social. I know chimpanzees are, and zoos always try to get the right mix and make sure that they grow together and can live together. Did Berani need more friends around him?
So tigers are solitary by nature, so they don't require the same social structures many other species, as you mentioned, like chimpanzees, for example. Mm-hmm. But he had lived with his mother from a very young age, and we were able to manage them in together. We were quite lucky to be able to do that. But they had their own space within that environment, even though they did have a relationship, a close relationship. So yeah, they're a bit of a different situation compared to, say, your chimpanzees or other social species.
So what's the zoo going to do now? Because you've been building a new tiger enclosure and you've just lost your last tiger. Are you on the lookout for a replacement?
So as part of our long-term plan, even obviously while Berani was still with us, and we were expecting him to be with us into the future to this new exhibit, but as part of that we were looking at acquiring more tigers to share that space with him. So that's still on the cards, and that's still something we're planning for in the future.
And why do we need to have tigers in zoos? People take interest in the overall tiger numbers. They've been scaling down and they are endangered, although I think in recent years, worldwide numbers may have I think the graph might be turning around, but it's still a concern. I mean, how is it important in terms of the work that the zoo does with tigers?
So in regards to Sumatran tigers, they're still considered critically endangered, and their population trend is still decreasing. There are as few as 400 left in the wild, which means things are pretty dire out there for them. And if there aren't places like Auckland Zoo who are raising awareness and also raising funds to send to places like Wildcats Conservation Alliance to support the conservation work out there in the wild, things are really not looking good for tigers or for Sumatran tigers. A great example of this is the anti-poaching units that Auckland Zoo support through Wildcats Conservation Alliance. Where those anti-poaching units operate, tiger numbers are stabilising and increasing. But if there are no funds for those units, then tiger numbers are going to be hit really, really hard. And it is estimated that if numbers keep decreasing in Sumatra the way that they could be extinct in the wild within the next 10 years. And so that's our lifetime. And no one wants that, because you come to the zoo, you see a beautiful, beautiful tiger like Berani, and you realise that, there's Beranis out there in the wild that are having a really, really hard time, and we've got to do what we can to save them, and by helping connect our visitors with these animals, we can actually secure a future for tigers in the wild, and hopefully none of us will ever have to live in a world without tigers.
So, Lauren, you're obviously very, very connected to Berani, and it's all still very fresh. Maybe we can finish with perhaps your fondest memory of Berani.
My fondest memory of Berani? Probably something really, really simple. I just love the way that you could come in the mornings, and sometimes you'd call him inside for his breakfast, and you'd just be like, why don't you come inside for breakfast? But he'd just be out sitting up on a platform, just looking out over the zoo and just taking in the sights and the sounds, and he just would have this look on his face, these slightly sleepy eyes and this big fluffy face, and just looking so regal and content, and just so just so handsome, and it's hard to put into words. It's just his whole persona, completely dignified and adorable, because you knew that he also was incredibly goofy, and it was just that almost contradiction in his personality. It was the awe that he could inspire, even in someone like myself who had the privilege of working with him, every day, from pretty much the day he was born. You just can never lose that sense of awe, and that's what I think I love the most about working with him.
Lauren Booth there from Auckland Zoo on a touching interview about Berani, a Sumatran tiger, the last Sumatran tiger surviving at Auckland Zoo. She says she's going to try to get a replacement one, but no plans yet. And they've built a new tiger enclosure, so hopefully they'll have some animal that can live there soon.